Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today is a very important topic, one that has been heavily requested, where we're going to talk about various ADS sensitivities on Apex Legends. So this is a setting over on mouse and keyboard, ADS mouse sensitivity, and you can turn this on per optic ADS sensitivity. So this obviously is a very important topic because it applies to every first-person shooter where you can change your ADS sensitivity per zoom. Now, I'm pretty passionate about this topic. It's been highly requested. I'm going to do this all in one take and just kind of talk freely as if you were sitting in the room next to me, and we're going to discuss and go fully in depth about this topic. Now, real quick, if you enjoy the content of the channel, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content, and let's just get right into it. So the first thing we need to understand right off the rip is full inches per 360, or even if you're on a controller, how long it takes until you make a full movement. So right now I'm moving my mouse and I stop, and this is my full inches per 360. I did not move my move my mouse. Now, that's just hip fire, right? Let's do the same thing. Now, one thing I have already done is I have matched my hip fire to my 1x in iron sight. So what that means, once I change the sensitivity, is that the movement required is the exact same as if I was hip fire or as if I'm ADS'd. The movement is the exact same. So why would somebody do this? So obviously I have various scopes in here because I want to show you the grand difference. It's most noticeable with the 3x scope, which I want to get more in depth and really talk about so you can understand this reasoning. On screen, when I discuss my current inches per 360, I use 1.5 sensitivity and 800 DPI on my current mouse. So that equates to about 13.6 inches per 360, and that's how long it takes for me to do the full movement. Now, if we look at this sensitivity for the 3x, understand first off what happens when the numerical number is 1. This happens across every single game that you play, whether it's PUBG, whether it's Apex Legends, Rainbow Six. There's always a default coefficient, right? So if you look at my hip fire, notice it's quite fast, right? Of course, I'm moving my mouse a little fast, so I'm going to do a little slower. Right, notice the sensitivity. Just get a feel for the sensitivity. Now, I'm going to ADS with a 3x. Notice how it's already occupying less space, and you're obviously going to have to trust, but I'm having to move my arm way more to ensure I'm getting the same movement. But look how much faster this is, instantly. The movement is still the same. I'm already making the movement. It's much faster hip fire, much slower ADS. Now, I've already done the calculation, but I'm going to go ahead and show it on screen. For me to match my hip fire to my ADS, I need to change this coefficient. So I'm going to go to ADS mouse sensitivity. I'm going to go to 3x opt. I'm going to turn this to 3.28. I've also put a video on this channel where I convert sensitivities. There's many different ways you can do this. I personally use mountsensitivity.com just because I've been grandfathered and I've used that website for God knows how long. But others can utilize Kovac's aim converter. There is just regular calculators. There are people who create spreadsheets. There are many different ways to do this. So don't feel obligated to ever pay for a service like this. But I just so happen to use one that requires like a $1 payment. But I really like the website, so that's my personal preference. Now into this, I put this coefficient here. I've already calculated this. I'll probably show it on screen, the calculation and the difference. So again, this is inches per 360. When I back up here, remember how slow it was before, right? It was very slow. Well, hip fire was fast, but my ADS was slow. Look at the space this occupies. Now, that's much faster, right? Obviously, because I raised the sensitivity. So again, if I put this back down to 1, realize that it's way slower, the space it occupies. Now, the question you might be asking yourself is, why do developers do this? Why did they code their game so whenever you ADS, your sensitivity is much slower? Well, the answer to this is because most individuals, when you're scoping in, you want to be more precise, especially for targets that are further away. And if you have a sensitivity that's too high for an ADS, let's say, for example, I move this up to 5. Just going to throw a random number out there, right? Notice how jarring this can be. This is very quick and requires a lot more finite movement to be successful. So if you have to have that finite movement and you're trying to snipe somebody, let's say from a mile away, and you're trying to hit pinpoint target, like, oh, I want to hit that, and you want to flick, well, having a higher sensitivity around that speed, let's say 3.28, it's going to be much difficult to hit, right? It's going to require a lot more dexterity. You have to utilize your fingers and your wrist more than your arm. So that's really where the crux of it comes from. So here's a better example, and I put various scopes in my inventory here just so I can give an example of how jarring it can be. So let's say I put on a 1x2. So obviously this is a 1x, right? And I zoom in for 2. Notice I've already done the calculation of 1.3 equals the same inches per 360 as my sensitivity here. Same for the 2x. These two match. Now this is an important topic. I have talked about field of view on the channel, and I highly recommend you check out the video. It has about 19,000 views. Again, I appreciate all the support in the video, but this is a really important topic because it ties in very heavily with that video. Note that field of view does not change your sensitivity. You're just more zoomed in. See how this is still occupying the same space? Let me go closer to the wall and showcase this a little better for you. So notice my hip fire. See, I'm moving my mouse the same. I'm more zoomed in. See how it's occupying the same space? Let's zoom in more. Occupying the same space. Now, if I put on the 3x, and let me make sure that my sensitivity right here is still 1. Yeah, so it's going to be much slower. So you see it's occupying? Notice how it actually is a lot slower now. And obviously you're just going to trust that my mouse movement is the same where I'm moving my mouse. But notice how my hip fire obviously covers way more distance, right? So let's recap a little bit on the importance of this and where it can be beneficial for you. Obviously, whenever you ADS, if you have very fast targets for games like Apex Legends, having a faster ADS is going to be able to help you track somebody who's close range. So if you have somebody in front of you and you're trying to track and catch up to them, obviously having something that matches your hip fire can assist. Now, if you're going for something a little further range, obviously having a lower sensitivity can be helpful too. So you really have to look at your own personal preference. There is no right or wrong when it comes to these various sensitivities. Now, the other question that most people will have is, well, how do I match my field of view to match another game? Well, you can also put this in terms of calculators. Recommend watching the field of view video I put out. That's also extremely beneficial, but there's a lot to really kind of uncover and discuss here. Now, there is another conversation, monitor distance and view distance, because obviously if you lower your FOV, excuse me, let's say I put it at 70. It looks like the sensitivity is higher, but it's not. This is, of course, the field of view video, and I won't get too in-depth on that, but notice how that still occupies the same space. And if I go along the wall, I just want to highlight that because it really hits on the topic of ADS. See? Gonna go real slow. Do the same thing. Take that up. Go real slow again. See? What happened is I see more space around me. Right? That's the only thing that changed, is that you see more on the left and more on the right. The same thing happens with scopes. Realistically, and I'll show you actually with the variable 2x. So I have one scope here, and look what happens when I zoom in. My left and right have highly zoomed in, and my verticality also just a little bit. There, I apologize, because I keep hitting shift. I'm over here spamming shift, so Windows kind of knocked me out. But nonetheless, that covers the tutorial for today on various scope sensitivities and what works best for you. So again, to final recap, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoy having these in-depth conversations to make, it's like we're sitting here having a conversation and really breaking this down. What are the pros of having it match? Well, there is a thing such as muscle memory, quote unquote. I hate the word muscle memory because everyone talks about it, but the movement required is the same. You see the arc, it's very much the same compared to a 3x where you have the same, but it doesn't cover the same amount of space. So there is that benefit if you match it, or if you just want it faster so you can keep up with targets that are right in front of you. And if you happen to go slower, let's say if I were to drop this even more for the 3x, let's just say this still was a little too fast and I wanted to slow it down even more to garner just a little bit more control, right? Let's say I went to 0.9, or even if I wanted to get more control because I'm just going to be that far away. Let's say I do 0.5. See how much slower that is? And trust me, I'm having to move my mouse way more just for that. And if we talk about numbers of what this looks like and how this scales versus per ADS, and this is applicable to most video games. Of course, the coefficients are different, but let's say my hip fire was Obviously, it's 13.6 inches per 360. This is going to be much lower if it's set at 1 to, who knows, probably 26, maybe 30 inches per 360. So if I were to do that again, let's go do the full example. Hit fire, full rotation, right? Now if I zoom in, this is one arm movement. I'm going to lift. This is one arm movement. Lift again. This is one arm movement. I'm going to lift again. And we're here. Compared to one arm movement, right? So hopefully this really breaks this down and helps you really understand various ADS sensitivities. There is no best one. I know I highlight the best ADS sensitivity, but you know the best thing about something like this is to better understand and find what's best for you. Again, I don't really see a lot of videos covering this topic and really breaking it down to the simplicity, but of course it gets really advanced very, very quickly. I want to thank you guys all so much for supporting the channel. Honestly, I've been seeing so much more growth in the channel, and I can tell this is really helping a lot of people in terms of topics, and I really, really appreciate it. So be sure, again, slap a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.